Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna review this Bella Beauty Bar Ultraviolet palette. I was thinking about getting Natasha Denona Rosha palette, but then this palette was restocked, so I grabbed this instead of Natasha Denona palette. So today I'm gonna do the eye swatches of all the shimmer shades and create two looks out of this palette. So without further ado, let's get into the swatches. First of all, this packaging is stunning. This palette is magnetic, so you can pop out the shadow using this hole. So for the eye swatches, I don't use an eye primer. So first I'm gonna swatch this shade called Magical. This shade looks very icy. So this is the shade Magical. This shade has white base with pink reflect. Next, I'm gonna swatch this shade called Spiritual. Each shade has this sticker. This has the shade name and the print of the shade. So this is really convenient. This shade looks so pretty. So this is the shade Spiritual. So this has the shift from purple to green, and this shade has a lot of red and green sparkles on the purpley base. This is so complex and beautiful. Again, this is the shade Magical and this is the shade Spiritual. Next, I'm gonna swatch this shade called Rarity. So this is the shade Reality. So this has bluish base with like pink shift, pink reflect, and this has a shift from blue to green, I guess. So next I'm gonna swatch this shade called Imagination. So this is the shade Imagination. This has gray base with purple shimmers in it. And I think this doesn't have any shift to it, but this is very pigmented. So this shade is Rarity and this shade is Imagination. So next I'm gonna swatch this shade called Creativity. So this is the shade Creativity. This has hot pink base with blue reflect. This is very pigmented. So the next shade is this called Mystery. So this is the shade Mystery. So this is the shade Creativity and this is the shade Mystery. These are similar, but this shade Mystery has more subtle bluish reflect. And the base pigment of this shade is more purpley than this. This is more of like a hot pink base. So this shade looks shinier than this. Next shade is this shade called Extravagance. This is the shade Extravagance. This shade is like bluish purple base with blue reflect. And the last shade of this palette is called Luxury. This is the shade Luxury. This is straight up pinky shade. So this shade is Extravagance and this shade is Luxury. This shade is a little bit more textured than this shade. This shade is more smooth. So lastly, I'm gonna do an eye swatch of this liquid eyeshadow. This is called Love Bite Holo. This packaging is very pretty. This shade is very sparkly. So this shade is Love Bite Holo. So this formula is very fast to dry down. Once this dries down, this doesn't move at all. And this doesn't transfer. This is so pretty. So I put ABH eye primer as usual. So first I'm gonna put this shade called Serenity. I'm gonna use Zoeva 228 brush. I'm gonna put this shade called Nobility with Zoniaji mini booster brush. I'm gonna use this shade called Peace and blend the edges of this darker shade. I'm gonna pack the darker shade on the outer corner. I'm gonna use Prefer 12 brush to apply this darker shade on the lower lash line. I'm gonna apply this shade Peace on the lower lash line. So I'm gonna use this shade called Spiritual. This shade is so pretty and sparkly. And I'm gonna use this shade called Magical on the inner corner. So this is a look number 1. So for the next look, I'm gonna use this shade called Peace as a base. And next, I'm gonna use this shade called Exotic. And I'm gonna use this shade called Balance and put it on the outer corner. I'm gonna put this shade, Peace, on the lower lash line. I'm gonna use this shade, Rarity, on my lid. And I'm gonna put this shade called Creativity on my lower lash line. And I'm gonna put this shade called Luxury on the outer corner. I'm gonna put this shade, Magica, on the inner corner. I'm gonna use this Refer 23 brush, and I'm gonna pack this shade called Balance. So this is look number 2. So those are all the swatches and looks. So let me tell you my final thoughts. So this is a beautiful palette. The mattes were very easy to use and I experienced zero fallout. But for the shimmers, this is just my personal preference, but I feel these shimmers are a little bit too simple to my liking. This shade is exception. This is called Spiritual. This shade is very pretty and complex, but the other shades was pigmented, very pigmented, but a little bit too simple in terms of shifts and sparkles. I'd love to see more of like this shadow. So if you prefer more of like a metallic shimmer, I think you love this. But for me, these shimmers are less sparkly and less complex to my liking. Yeah, this palette is very high quality and pigmented, but the type of shimmers is different from what I expected. And this palette was pretty expensive with international shipping. So the sold price of this palette is $65 and the shipping price to Japan was around $40. So the shipping is pretty expensive. So for that price, I feel this is a little bit expensive for the quality. And lastly, let me talk about this liquid eyeshadow. So this is called Love Bite Holo. So this contains holographic shimmers. So this is very sparkly and dimensional. And the quality of this liquid shadow is also really good. This is pretty fast to dry down. And once it dries down, this doesn't move. So I think quality of this liquid shadow is pretty good. So to be honest, I prefer this liquid shadow over the shimmers of this palette. Yeah. But this is totally my preference, so I'm not saying this palette is low quality or something. Yeah. So that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So see you on the next video. Bye.